Well, for those of you joining us here today, thank you for being a part of our special day today. It's been, as you know, a long time, a very long time in coming. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Because of the heat advisory today, we plan on making our opening remarks today indoors. And then immediately afterwards, we'll be able to go outside and partake in our groundbreaking ceremony. And we're about almost 2 months into the project, or at least 6 or 7 weeks into the project. So you'll be able to see the progress that has been made so far. So thank you again, and we'll go ahead and get started. Well, as you can imagine, we've been a little busy. Can you believe that this day is here? Personally, I've been telling folks probably since 2014, maybe next year, and pretty much every year after that. Certainly we all have. But it was more than a decade ago that this project really got off the ground, with certainly a lot of twists and turns in between. And seriously, though, I don't have to remind you how long it's been to get to this point. But I thought I'd start off by kind of giving you a little bit of a background on where we got started. The idea of a roundhouse for our museum dates back to the very beginning of this museum as an institution. In fact, it kind of goes back before there was a Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania, before this was even an idea. It has always been with us as a concept. In the early 1960s, early concepts for our museum often included a roundhouse as a design element or even a primary feature of our property. Of course, none of those concepts came to fruition. But what did occur was the donation of a 1928 Reading Company turntable, which you will see today, its arrival in 1967, and its installation starting in 1970. But who would have thought at that time that it would take another 55 years to see a roundhouse to complement that turntable? Strategic planning began in the late 1980s, and at that point it also included hopes for a partial roundhouse of some kind. But the modern effort to get us a roundhouse goes back to at least 2002 under the leadership of Museum Director David Dunn, who is here with us today. So I hope I get this story correct, Dave. But he would probably say it all began with a phone call in late summer of 2002 between board member Jer Schuler, who was also a state representative at the time in a neighboring district, and of course, Museum Director David Dunn. Representative Schuler asked Dave at that time what were the 3 most important things that the state could possibly fund as capital projects. Of course, roundhouse was one of them. By October of 2002, by some small miracle, a capital bill in the amount of $16.2 million was passed for 3 projects. Climate control for Rolling Stock Hall, which we've been enjoying here since 2012. New exhibits, which we got in 2019 and right around the time of COVID. And of course, last but not least, the roundhouse. Funds for the design of the roundhouse were released in 2010, while funds for the project itself were initially released in 2013. However, as you are well aware, the design itself went through many twists and turns over the years to get to be put out to bid. Since 2002, every museum director, from David Dunn to Charlie Fox to Jeff Bleemeister, has worked tirelessly to keep this project moving forward. Every staffer, every volunteer has been asked, probably more than they care to admit, when will the roundhouse finally be built? Countless times over and over again. Through it all, our museum directors, our staff, and our volunteers have been supported by the Friends of the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania, our amazing associate group, our advisory council, who've been right there with us and have had our backs and have supported us through their advocacy efforts over many decades. And our board president, Jim Donahue, is here today. Our advisory council president, Doug Watts, couldn't be with us today, but he certainly is an important part of this day as well. So thank you, folks. It has been a challenging project, to say the least. Tight property lines, difficult site geology, not to mention the sheer scale and weight and size of these steam locomotives. But for all the successes that we've had, there have been numerous setbacks along the way, many of which are well documented. But as I have said many times, over and over again, you probably heard me say it, the intervening years were not wasted years. Not at all. We went back to the drawings, we took the time to fine-tune, to tweak, to get the design that best met the needs of our collection. It has indeed been a long journey, but we're finally here. And I believe it's because of the efforts of a good team of fiercely dedicated public servants and design professionals, from the Pennsylvania Department of General Services, DGS, to PHMC, to Erdy McHenry. Erdy McHenry, of course, our architectural firm who's been with us from the very beginning. They have worked day in, day out to get this project out to bid. You have no idea how hard they've worked, how tirelessly they've worked to move this project forward despite all the challenges we've endured. Their eyes were always on the prize, I can assure you. They'd probably say they were just doing their jobs, but to me, it is far more than that, and we cannot thank them enough for getting this project out to bid and into the hands of ECI Construction and their numerous subcontractors to take this project into the construction phase. And we look forward to continuing to work with them. Jason in the back there, his crew have been working tirelessly for the last 6 or 7 weeks, maybe a little longer. We appreciate it. You will actually see a little bit of that progress here today. But I also want to recognize some other folks. I want to recognize the staff and the volunteers of our restoration shop here at the Railroad Museum. As a result of our ongoing Ready for the Roundhouse campaign, curator Alan Martin and his team of volunteers have worked tirelessly to get all of the steam locomotives gradually over time to a point where we will be able to exhibit them in our new building. Inside our new roundhouse, you will see 6 steam locomotives in varying phases of preservation. And this work will be ongoing even after the building is finished. We will keep working on these things. PRR E6S number 460 has already been restored. PRR B6SB number 1670 is well on its way to being completely restored. Our H10S has been media blasted and primer painted with the L1S in process, and that leaves the K4S and the M1B soon to follow. While all this work will not be completed by the time our roundhouse is opened, you will be able to come back from time to time, and you will be able to see the progress. Our staff and volunteers will continue to work on this equipment over the span of many years. And while that work may seem slow and arduous, you will see the progress on your repeat visits to our new roundhouse building when it's finished. In the meantime, thankfully, once the building is completed, these locomotives will be protected from the elements, no longer left out in the rain or in the cold. Absolutely. It's a good thing. Finally, I will end with this observation. Whether by chance, coincidence, or good planning, it always seems like we have some kind of major building project occurring during one of our milestone or anniversary years. You probably walked through it when you came into the building, but you'll notice the new addition to Rolling Stock Hall was completed in 1995, and that was our 20th anniversary. So it just sort of seems that we've been the beneficiaries of a milestone or an anniversary of some kind, and a big building project to go along with it. And truly, the roundhouse itself is the icing on the cake for us as a railroad museum celebrating 50 years of service to our community. What a joyous time for us all, and I can assure you we are just getting warmed up. So next, I would like to welcome some special guests who are here to help me today to mark this special occasion. So first up, I'd like to introduce Secretary Patrick Brown, Department of Revenue, who is a good friend of ours, and he has a few words he'd like to get us started off with. Secretary Brown.
Thank you. It's great to be back. First, I want to congratulate the leadership of the museum for selecting today as a truly immersive experience. Being outside is what it probably felt like on most days to work within a railroad roundhouse. It was good, very good timing. But on behalf of Governor Shapiro, and as a railroad enthusiast, my family would say somewhat obsessed railroad enthusiast, very proud to be here to congratulate the leadership, the staff, the volunteers of the Railroad Museum, the best of its kind in the nation, for this very important addition to the museum, not only to the mission, but to tell the full story of railroading in Pennsylvania and throughout the world. I was very proud to play a small part in advancing this project, and I did want to recognize one person. I think he's here, Bennett Levin, who partnered with me, there he is, partnered with me on doing our part to advance the project forward. So Bennett, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, between the iron ribbons that spanned its physical operation, the railroad was defined by its many facilities. Passenger stations, freight houses, schwitzing towers, and hump yards were just a few of the most prominent. Yet, if you had to identify the facility on any railroad, which was the undisputed emblem of the golden era, the most indispensable to its sustained operation under steam power, it would clearly be the railroad roundhouse. Its circular or semicircular form, straddled with a round table, hugging the powerful locomotives it served. Numbering over 3,000 in the mid-last century, ranging in size from the modest 6-stall structure in Reading Saucon Yard to the massive 52-stall, largest in the world, of the Pensie's East Altoona, by far the most unique and distinctive structure in any town and the most identifiable to any industry. Within its thick, soot-stained brick walls, time seemed to pulse with the rhythm of labor, camaraderie, and the ceaseless drive of machines. To step into a railroad roundhouse is to enter the microcosm of an industry, where the dance between man and machine unfolds with vivid intensity. Roundhouses were conceived as the nerve centers of railroad operation and locomotive maintenance. The design was not only efficient, maximizing space and facilitating movement, but it also fostered a communal environment amongst the railroaders. Inside the roundhouse was a world apart. The air was thick with the scent of oil and hot metal. Sunlight filtered through dusty skylight windows, illuminating a forest of smokestacks and steel beams. Locomotives, majestic in their repose, stood side by side like sleeping giants, each watched over by a dedicated team of mechanics and engineers. From dawn until dusk, and often in deep into the night, the roundhouse was alive with purposeful motion. Each day began with a flurry of activity. Boilermakers, mechanics, and firemen swarmed over their engines, their hands calloused, their faces smeared with grease. Every nut and bolt was subject to scrutiny, every pipe checked for leaks and damage. The cacophony of hammers, wrenches, and riveting machines echoed throughout the cavernous space. Sparks flew as welders melted cracks in fireboxes or patched worn-out trucks. At the end of their stay, the locomotives now polished, refueled, and coaxed back to life, steam hissing, pistons churning. The cycle began again and again around the clock with each departure. Despite the constant noise and grime, there was a palpable sense of camaraderie amongst the crew. The roundhouse brought together individuals from various backgrounds, immigrants, seasoned railroaders, and apprentices, each laboring and contributing their knowledge to the whole. Besides its utilitarian function, the roundhouse was a social hub. During breaks, the men gathered in shadowy corners or around makeshift tables, sharing stories, jokes, and sometimes grievances. Coffee and tin lunch pails circulated, their contents a modest comfort to the hot, the cold, and the clamor. Bonds formed that extended beyond the roundhouse, creating a fraternity rooted in shared hardship and pride. It hosted celebrations, retirement parties, birthdays, and sometimes even weddings amid the clangor. Practical jokes and friendly competitions lightened the mood, and the walls rang with laughter as often as the hammer blows. As it has been for the majority of Pennsylvanians throughout the last 2 centuries, where the railroad offered more than just transportation, a place where strangers became acquaintances, stories were exchanged, and landscapes unfolded with panoramic views, the roundhouse was more than just a place of work for the tens of thousands of its stewards. It was the place where a connection with man and machine defined their place in a productive, prosperous society. For every railroad in our Commonwealth throughout the world, its heart beat within the stable of the Iron Horse. And no story of Pennsylvania railroading is complete without the tales and tribulations of the roundhouse. For the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum, the finest of its kind in the nation, this groundbreaking marks a historic commitment to that understanding. Within the modern roundhouse on this site, iron giants of the Commonwealth's railroad legacy will receive the expert stewardship in their preservation, honoring the machine mastery which ensured their operation in decades past. Skilled staff and volunteers will share expertise in their craft and exchange stories and comradeship, echoing the rhythms and sounds of the roundhouse railroaders once in service throughout the Commonwealth. Museum patrons will be immersed in a once indispensable environment of railroading, gaining a more true appreciation of what it meant to be in the heart and soul of the industry which allowed the Commonwealth to change the world. Ladies and gentlemen, in communities throughout Pennsylvania, thousands of times day in and day out, the machines that would power a nation would enter and depart a unique facility which defined the most impactful industry in our country's history. Today, the legacy of that indispensable facility begins its journey back to life. Today, the beating heart of the Pennsylvania and the American Railroad, the Railroad Roundhouse, begins its powerful rhythm once again to honor the extraordinary service and commitment of railroaders of generations past for the benefit of patrons and stewards of this prized facility for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Brown. We appreciate you being here once again. Next up, I'd like to introduce Greg Kirk, who's Deputy Secretary for Capital Projects at the Pennsylvania Department of General Services. Greg?
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Secretary. I mean, looking out at this crowd today just shows the impact that this project is going to have on the Commonwealth. I see a lot of people here, and it really is a big celebration day on what this is going to bring for the museum in the future. So thank you all for joining us today for this truly grand occasion. The Roundhouse Construction Project represents not only a major step forward for this incredible museum, but also a powerful investment in the Commonwealth's industrial heritage. The future 16,000 square foot long-awaited building will be a permanent home for some of Pennsylvania's most iconic steam locomotives, machines that not only help power the economy, but connect communities and shape the history of Pennsylvania. When completed, the Roundhouse will preserve these locomotives in a state-of-the-art, climate-controlled facility designed to keep them safe for generations. Architecturally, the new facility will feature a stunning fan-shaped layout crafted with brick, steel, and glass. Not only will this building be beautiful and functional, it will be welcoming, ADA accessible, and purpose-built for both preservation and education. On behalf of the Department of General Services, Thank you for everyone that has made this vision a reality. The design professional, Ernie McHenry, the numerous consultants, the DGS design management team, and the incredible PHMC staff who have worked hard for years to develop this design and move it into construction. As we take the first steps into construction, I'd also like to recognize our construction partners, ECI Construction, Air Management Technologies, Vision Management, Shannon A. Smith Incorporated, and the DGS Bureau of Construction, who are now tasked to turn this vision into reality. The tracks of history run through this place, and the construction of the roundhouse will make sure they run strong into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Well, now we have a couple of speakers who are going to represent us, but first, I'd like to introduce representing PHMC, Dr. William Lewis. Bill is a commissioner and vice chair with PHMC, Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. So, Bill.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, I welcome all of you to this groundbreaking ceremony. For many here today, this is the beginning of the fulfillment of really a dream to have a brand new roundhouse to explore the critical importance of railroading in our state. Structures in the railroad system and to provide not only educational display, but also to provide for needed space for repairs. The restoration of rail equipment that tells the story of America's transportation history is just incredible to have here. Railroads are often called as the invention that changed the world. As the Keystone State, as part of our nation, Pennsylvania was a critical part of the transportation system that moved food from farms and needed equipment from factories all across the country and indeed the world. I want to take a moment to thank some folks for their hard work on this. Of course, we certainly thank Governor Shapiro and his administration for all they have done to make this possible. We thank the General Assembly and its members for the support they have given to this project right through, and we certainly appreciate it. Pat, we certainly have to thank you and your staff, as well as your amazing Friends of the Railroad Museum and your volunteers. This is just an incredible facility, and it attracts so many volunteers. I also want to thank our staff at the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission, led by our incredible executive director, Andrea Lowry. Would you, Andrea, stand up and be recognized? PHMC, it's transportation year for us. We are in the process of having the USS Niagara completely refitted. We're building this project here. And next year, the mother of all projects is a rebuild of, that will start later in the year, of Pennsylvania State Museum in Harrisburg. So it's been, and she just completed probably the most advanced archives in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So Andrea and her staff have just done extraordinary things and will really leave a legacy for Pennsylvania for our future. With each shovel of earth that is dug today, you will see the beginning of a new place that will persist into the future for many, many generations. A place to preserve and rebuild history, and a place to educate the youth of today and tomorrow. Future generations will visit this place, and they will see Pennsylvania's role in the incredible transportation system that not only built our nation, but served the world. I thank all of you for being here today for this great moment in history, and enjoy your rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. I'd also like to introduce, and he was here during our 50th, so we're glad to have him back, Randall Spackman, who's also a commissioner with the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. Randall.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Pat. Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be back here again after the 50th. I'm glad you guys didn't check my pockets because it's always good to come back with a little railroading history, but it's such an amazing place. And that's one reason I'm here, just to speak on a few words. Every time I've come to this building, not only is it so enticing with the history it holds, but the volunteers that make it really such an active community. They're willing to answer questions, to give you guide tours, they go through that extra step. One of the things with volunteers in this current climate is not only do they give their time, but their families and friends will make up the difference at their own homes and places so they can fulfill their dreams here. And that's one thing that is so important, that you bestowed such in current climate to help create that environment. Have those people help support everyone here so when they come walking through the door, they're greeted with that smile and that extra effort. One of the great lines that I remember very much in my own heart is that volunteers do not always have the time, but they have the heart. They know what's important to them and their community and the society, and they hold that dear, and they know by giving that time, their most precious commodity, that they can enlighten somebody else's world and show that that passion that comes through themselves will bestow on somebody else to eventually keep that cycle going. And that's really what's happened here through all the years as I think back at the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum, is this succession of plans. It's not just one person, but it's groups over decades with plans like the roundhouse. It's conceived in one and moved on until it's built and moved in there. It's amazing. This is all long-term planning, but it's a family, and they continue that vision on and on. So, Pat, congratulations, work to all your staff, and this is a well-deserved for the community and our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. We appreciate you being here. And finally, we're going to close out today's presentations with a good friend of mine who I do remember your very first day here as director. And he was certainly director of the Railroad Museum at a very critical time for us. David Dunn was museum director from 1997 to 2009, and it was during those very formative years that you saw a lot of progress and a lot of things change. A lot of what we have was certainly owe very much to your efforts. So without further ado, he's going to take us out. Go ahead.
Thank you, Pat. One of the dangers of going last is that I've been mentally crossing things out of my speech that have already been said. And I just wanted to go back over the time back in August of 2002 when Representative Schuler gave me a call. And we had done some planning, and so there were some documents I could refer to when he asked me about the major projects. So I listed at least 5 or 6 at the time. And he asked me which ones were the most important, so I prioritized them. And then he asked me a really kind of critical question, which I was totally unprepared to answer. How much should we put aside to do these projects? And so I came up with some figures just basically off the top of my head, because no one and none of the planning had gone into that detail of project funding. And so I basically, there were, of the 6 or 7 projects that I listed, it was almost maybe $8 million that I had come up with. And the roundhouse, I believe, we should be able to do that for $2 million. So I was very much surprised after the vote occurred then in October of 2002 to see the PHMC's listing of the projects. And there were actually 4 of them. There was $360,000 for fire suppression, because we had built Stewart Junction, and part of the DGS thing that we had to do was put build fire suppression into it, but we had nothing to connect it to. So we had to provide a water line and a pump to provide the water for that project. So that was done while I was here. And then there was $5 million for an HVAC project. And that was to take this whole building and put in air conditioning and heat, which everyone thought was pretty much impossible. But no, it wasn't. And the 4.5 million, of course, had to be augmented too, because that was not even close. But Charlie Fox was doing the director at that point. And then there was 4.5 million for exhibits, which was a terribly long and drawn out thing as well. It started when I was director, and there was just a total collapse of the planning process in that particular endeavor. But Pat managed to bring it all together and get that all done. As you said, what was the date that you said?
2019, but really, once we reopened that.
Okay, yeah, okay. So 2019 it was expended. And of course, the roundhouse was something that was in that thing too at $6.6 million. And so I was all pleased sitting at my desk, and the phone rang. And Brent Glass, the executive director of the PHMC at the time, said, "Dave, can you tell me how the Railroad Museum got $16.5 million in the capital bill through the PHMC?" And I said, "Well, I did get a call from Jer Schuler, and I listed a couple of projects, and he took it from there." And the question he asked me pointedly was, "Did you solicit him for that money?" I said, "Absolutely not." And he said, "Okay, we're done." That was it. So I was off the hook on that one. And this is actually, the roundhouse is the last of the big projects from that capital bill that Jer Schuler shepherded through. And so I am very pleased. And all the thanks that Pat said and everyone else here said, I agree with. And one of the things that I wanted to mention was that one of the few known facts of this collection's importance is that when I was director, at least, more than 32% of the railroad equipment listed on the National Register was in this collection. So that's significant. But again, the FRM Board of Directors, their staff, the PHMC staff, the Advisory Council, DGS, the governor, the representatives of the governor, everybody, again, all deserve a great thanks. And the last thank I would like to give is to the FRM membership. Never gave up. Thanks, Pat.
Couldn't have said it better, Dave. I also do want to recognize, as we close out here, some other folks who are with us today. Of course, Andrea Lowry, Executive Director of PHMC. Seated next to her is Melissa Mann, Bureau Director, PHMC, Bureau of Historic Sites and Museums. Mike Emery, Eastern Division Chief, Bureau of Historic Sites and Museums, PHMC. Stephen Rank, Outreach Representative for U.S. Representative Lloyd Smucker. Stephen was also here for our 50th. We appreciate that. Nicholas Hartwell, Field Representative for State Senator Scott Martin. Where's Nicholas? Is he here? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Lydia. Yeah, Lydia Messner's here for representing State Senator Scott Martin. Are you here, Lydia? Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Jim Donahue, Board President, Friends of the Railroad Museum. Doug Watts, who couldn't be here. Doug is our Advisory Council President. Mark Miller, Ernie McHenry Architecture is with us. Thank you, Mark. We also have folks from ECI Construction here. I talked to Jason at the very beginning, representing the crew that's working outside. I appreciate all his help very much in getting our groundbreaking set up today. Thank you so much. I want to thank folks from the Board of Supervisors of Stroudsburg Township. They were tremendously helpful, good friends to us, and we certainly appreciate their extreme patience and all of their assistance over the years. I also want to recognize Sarah Long, Marketing Director for Discover Lancaster, and Tori Nonamaker, Social Media Manager also with Discover Lancaster. So thank you for joining us. So in conclusion, before we head outside, I just wanted to thank everybody, all of our guests for being with us to share this special day, former staff, current staff, volunteers, and supporters. We appreciate your extreme patience with us in this project, but certainly this is the best way to get it kicked off, and we appreciate you all being here. I also wanted to take just a quick moment to give a special shout out to one of our very own, Deb Rettig. Deborah Rettig is our advancement director here at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. She did a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes, getting this groundbreaking ceremony together today, and also our 50th anniversary on April 22nd. She also was a very important part of that planning as well. So what I'd like to do, we are open today until 4 o'clock. So you are welcome to visit, take a look at some of our open locomotives and equipment, but we also have tours this afternoon. Our visitor services staff has been working hard to develop some tours. Particularly, I want to recognize Logan McDonald. Logan McDonald, our visitor service associate too, will be offering 50th anniversary tours that he developed at 1:15, 2:15, and 3:15 today. Each one of those tours will be followed up by the debut of a yard tour that's being developed by Tracy Ray, our custodial guide too, who's also here today. So again, thank you all for joining us. What we're going to do, we're going to go outside and do some digging, if you don't mind, and you'll be able to see the progress. So we're going to leave here. Any of you who are able and interested and willing to come out with us, we're going to go in this direction, go out towards the yard for our special groundbreaking ceremony. But if you're not able to join us, please feel free to visit and walk around and enjoy our exhibits today. And once again, I thank you and look forward to what we have in store for the rest of the year for you. Well, we do have a pretty big Olympic-sized swimming pool. Never done this before. This is my first rodeo.
Just got to throw some dirt.
All right, folks. Thank you all for being here. We're going to go ahead and get digging. Come on over, Dave.
Two shovels here. We can share shovels too.
We can share shovels. There you go. Gotta make it look good. This is historic dirt. This is the good stuff. One, two, three.
Where you can put the railroad.
Okay, is the building up? Yeah, the building's done.
Back to one.
Another one, he can do that.
Yep, pose right there. Great.
2,